All the way back in 2014, before the Apple Watch was even announced, Samsung had released their fourth smartwatch, the Gear S, and it stood out because it was the first smartwatch with a curved screen that wrapped around your wrist. From a design standpoint, it looked like it came from the future, like the future where we are all wearing smartphones on our wrists, and it replaced the smartphones that we got used to in our pockets. At least, that's what I imagined. Unfortunately, I never got the opportunity to use the Gear S itself, and since it didn't have any sequels because of its poor reception and probably poor sales, it died and was replaced with more traditional, modern smartwatches like the Galaxy Watch 3. I still have hope that one day we'll reach that future where we're all wearing curved screen smartwatches that replace our smartphones. But until then, we've got smartwatches like the Apple Watch, the Galaxy Watch 3, or the Nubia Alpha. The Nubia Alpha is kind of the spiritual successor to the Gear S all those years ago, and I've been using it for the last couple months. But should you consider this over a more traditional smartwatch? Let's talk about it. This is an ISO, and this is the Nubia Alpha Watch review. Okay, so admittedly, I wanted to do a full review of the Nubia Alpha, but this is going to be shortened a little bit because frankly, after using this for a couple months, I can tell you that this is no way ready for the mainstream. While you can buy it, go on and buy it now, it really doesn't feel like anything more than a beta product, and it doesn't have quite as many features as most modern smartwatches, which I'd argue aren't that many features in the first place. Let's start with the design. On first glance, the Nubia Alpha might either appear to you as incredibly modern or incredibly beta, and it's some mix of the two for me. I do like the design because it does feel like they put a lot of work into making this feel premium, like the metal bands, the metal frame, and the relatively flexible rubber or synthetic band on bottom. From a visual standpoint, I have no issues with this design because frankly they had to fit these components somewhere. But I wouldn't wear this into the office or into a meeting, and definitely wouldn't wear this on a first date. Frankly, the metal links on top actually feel like they're more meant for giving the watch structure than design. And that structure feels like you're wearing handcuffs. After long bouts of wearing this, I can easily see prints being put into my wrist as the watch seems to dig into it, and it feels to be like it's clenching the sides of my wrist the same way that the AirPods Pro clamped onto the side of my head. The metal links seem to serve two purposes. First, a visual design and also a functional design of keeping the components relatively solid. Yes, this does have a flexible display, but the display only curves at the edges. It doesn't really curve at the top because of how dense the metal is on top and how thick it is. And so all of that adds up to an incredibly uncomfortable watch to wear. Impressively, it's more comfortable than it might look, but not much. The curve of this smartwatch really makes it seem like it was meant for a specific wrist size, and maybe a wrist size that's slightly smaller than mine. I can't imagine someone with a larger wrist being comfortable at all, or someone with a lot smaller wrist not having it rattle back and forth on the wrist. Functionally, there's a single button on the side of the device, and there's no other buttons or controls other than that. So there's no digital crown or no rotating bezel like you'd get on Apple Watches or Samsung Galaxy Watches. Instead, the only way that you can interact with the screen is by swiping on it. And I really don't mind that too much, except for when it comes to swiping left and right. Because this screen is relatively thin, there's not a lot of room to swipe left and right, and I found that I was bumping up against the sides of the watch too often when I was trying to naturally swipe. Navigating the watch is quite responsive. It's actually quite fast getting through applications, but there's not a lot of places to go. Once you do get into applications made for the watch, they all feel like they were made for the tall screen, with an extra amount of content in order to kind of get more in one view. It's really amazing and impressive the way that content just spills over the edge of your wrist, and it feels super modern, but it just doesn't feel like there's too much you can view anyways. The operating system that runs on this watch is relatively bare, with a swipe down to look at your control center, a swipe up for notifications, and either a swipe left or right from the home screen from the clock in order to get to your applications. Now, there's a pretty limited number of applications here. There's messaging and calls, there's a couple fitness apps, and then there's some unique apps to the watch. But don't think that you're going to be going onto the Play Store and downloading the latest version of Spotify onto this watch. It's not an option. The fitness applications on the watch are also quite limited, with outdoor walking, outdoor running, indoor running, and free workout. So there's no weightlifting tracking or yoga or anything that you might find on a modern Fitbit. That's a little limited, but generally I wouldn't recommend using this as a fitness band. Yes, it does function with a heart rate tracker and a GPS, so you can take it on runs. I just wouldn't personally do so myself for fear of bumping up against something or sweating all over it and having that kill the components. Like most other smartwatches, it does work as a notification reader or for messages, but frankly, you can't actually action on those messages or those notifications that you get, so it's just a reader. So there's no quick reply functions, there's no keyboard, there's no ability to actually respond to any messages you get or any tweets that you get, and so it's quite limited in its functionality. In addition, there is the ability to make phone calls from it. And while I did find that the microphone worked pretty well and the other person on the line could hear me very well, I actually had to hold the watch very closely to my ear in order to hear anything that person was saying. And I generally wouldn't recommend it if you really wanted to take phone calls from it. Just instead probably get a good pair of Bluetooth headphones. And unfortunately, that's pretty much it when it comes to the Nubia Watch. It's very limited when it comes to its functionality or feature set. And so really, I feel like when you're buying the Nubia watch, you're just buying into the future. You're just trying something significantly new for the sake of the unique experience. I don't really think it's worth it in this case in particular. I think there are a lot of other beta products that are a lot more intriguing, like the Surface Duo, for example. I really hope that Samsung or Apple or some other large manufacturer is able to manufacture a smartwatch that is usable as a smartwatch that has a larger curved screen that wraps around your wrist. I don't think it's likely in any near term. Hopefully in the short term, Samsung will be able to manufacture it, but it doesn't seem like their focus right now. As curved screens get more and more common and usable on smartphones, hopefully that technology will trickle down to smartwatches in 3 or 4 years. But I wouldn't expect it anytime sooner. And so for those of us today who are looking to buy a cool new smartwatch, the Nubia Alpha is probably not the right watch for you. Instead, I'd rather get a more traditional smartwatch. Thank you for watching ISO. I hope you like this quick review of the Nubia Alpha, and I hope you know not to buy it now. Let me know down in the comments if you think I'm wrong about anything about the Nubia Alpha, and if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you in the next one.